Dr. Laura Mae Lindo, member of Provincial Parliament for Kitchener Centre, is a respected activist and educator who holds a master's and a PhD in education. She is the official opposition critic for anti-racism and citizenship and immigration. And I would say one thing, she inspires me a lot. And for me, what I love is this is, you can tell when you have conversations with her, this is a mission. This is more than just serving the community. This is going into the heart. This seems more like a purpose. And for every time she speaks, whenever you connect with her, have a conversation, you feel the passion oozing out. And I want to just say thank you so much for all the great work you're doing for our community. You're giving so many people permission to stand up and say, if she can do it, I can also do it. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I need to put my disclaimer up as well. Like everyone else, I'm at home. So my 6-year-old has found me. He really needs a slice of pizza right now. So you might hear some noise in the background. But I am absolutely 110% honored to be here. I have to tell you, though, I was jamming to Rufus John and I nearly forgot to log in. He is like, whew, that was hot. Between that and the steel pans, I don't even know what to do with myself. I am very, very excited about this kickoff to Black History Month. So what I wanted to do was to backtrack just a little bit. So yesterday when I was thinking about my thoughts about Black History Month, what kinds of things I want to be able to express today when I'm chatting with you folks, I kept thinking about the fact that for us, we have used celebration as a tool to advocate. And I think for a lot of mainstream folks, for non-Black communities, they don't necessarily know that that's what we're doing. And when I was watching just now, watching Amy smoke and watching Sky, I literally cried, because that's the kind of advocacy and sort of the full circle of teaching, education, celebration, activating our community and activism that we do on a regular basis. And so I just wanted to give another shout out to Amy and to Sky. That was absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But where am I going to start with you today? I'm going to start with something that my mommy literally just said to me. So I called her this morning. For anybody who knows me, they know that oftentimes I prep for my speaking engagements. I really do, but I like to keep it real. And so I was thinking a lot about some of the kinds of issues that we've been facing right here in community, celebrating Black History Month at the time of the pandemic. And I remembered my mommy telling me something that her great-grand-grand used to tell her. And so her great-grand-grand used to say, "Bear up, my good tree, bear up." And so I called my mommy and I was talking to her about this. And I was saying, when Grand-Grand is saying that, right, she had said to me, her grand-grand told her, her great-grand-grand told her, now mommy is telling me. So this is my great-great-grand-grand's wisdom that's coming out today, right? She says, "Bear up, my good tree, bear up." My parents are from Jamaica. And so I was talking to mommy about this, and mommy said, well, it's all about keeping strong, staying strong in the face of oppression, all of the things that we know as Black community members that we have to do and that we do, right? And we teach our kids to do. So we hung up the phone. I said to her, I'm getting my notes together. And then she called me back and she said, "Laura Mae, I just looked it up again. And when I look up what bear up means," she said, "it means tolerate patiently." She said, "Tolerate patiently? You mean for years and years and years, for centuries, we've been telling each other to tolerate it patiently." And now my mommy's quote, mommy comes in all of my things, right? My mommy's quote, "What are we waiting for? An asteroid?" So that is mommy's message to the people of Waterloo region to kick off Black History Month. Are we waiting for an asteroid before we start to actually disrupt, to speak out, to stand up? Or are we going to recognize that the idea of us being patient isn't working? Being patient in a system that does not change isn't working. Being patient in a system where people are choosing to do better, choosing to use their power and privilege for good, choosing to ensure that we as Black folks are safe and secure and loved and cared for and treated with compassion, that I have patience for. But patience for a system that stays the same? No, my answer is no. And I hope that for Black History Month 2021, y'all know that the answer is no too. So with that being said, I started to think about what we are actually going through right here in Waterloo Region as Black community members. I don't know if many of you know, but there was a report, the initial analysis of socio-demographic indicators for COVID-19 cases in Waterloo Region. And so that report came out on November 17th. The local findings, you can find the report online. The local findings said that there is a significant disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on individuals who identify as visible minority, as Black, who have an income before taxes of less than $50,000 a year, and whose first language is not English or French. So these are real stats about what's happening right now in our region when it comes to the pandemic. Those stats, the report goes on to say, are showing similar trends here in Waterloo Region as we're seeing in Toronto, as we're seeing in Ottawa, and as we're seeing in Hamilton, which means even though we might have a small number of data to be looking at, the reality is it's mapping a bigger trend, and Black folks in Waterloo Region are connected to Black folks in other regions and across this province. So when I was reading the report a little bit further, it said, well, what do we need? We need greater collective response for communities that are disproportionately impacted. A greater response, a recognition of the social determinants of health, a recognition of the reality that Black community members are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 for a variety of reasons, systemic reasons, not because us as Black folks are more inclined or don't want to listen to public health, but because us as Black community members have not been provided with the wraparound support that has been promised by the political systems around us. Now, when we all come together to start to address all of this, one of the questions that always comes about is, well, where are we then on the list for the vaccine? The reason I'm raising this is because in the back of my mind, I cannot stop hearing my grandmother or my great-great-grand saying, bear up, my good tree, bear up. My question to everybody out here who's listening is, shall we bear up and just wait and see where we are? Or do we need to fight to make sure that we are centered in this list? I think that it's important for us to recognize that if data is demonstrating that Black community members are disproportionately impacted by COVID, then Black community members also need to be centered in what will keep us safe. And so part of my role is going to be to continue to advocate to ensure that Black communities have what they need to thrive, have what they need to do more than just survive, have what they need to feel safe, loved, cared for. I will keep fighting systems that keep us down, that oppress us, that tell us that we need to just remain patient, but not necessarily move or mobilize to ensure that we have what we need so that our patience isn't in vain. And I'm hoping that all of you will join me in this advocacy. I think you will, because 20,000 of you showed up in Kitchener Centre not too long ago to march in solidarity with Black and Indigenous people right here in the region. And so my hope is that as we're talking about who needs to be centered right now, that all of you will show up again, show up for Black communities, do more than just celebrate us. As I've said before, I don't know if people have heard me say it, but I'll say it again. I don't need more people to celebrate my Blackness. I know that my Blackness is beautiful. I know that I stand on the shoulders of ancestors who have fought a good fight before me and have created a pathway for me to keep doing this advocacy. We are beautiful. We are blessed. We are loved. We know that. So celebrating us is not what the Black History Month call is for. What the Black History Month call is for is to have you educate yourself about our beauty, about our wisdom, about our what we bring back to community, and join us in the fight for justice. Join us in ensuring that we are safe and secure and protected. Join us in making sure that we have what we need to thrive, because we do that for you, and the reciprocity in this community is what makes us so, so blessed. And so, my friends, this is where I'm wondering if Io is still out there. I can't see him because I'm on the other side of this StreamYard thing, but I am, hey, look, there he is. Look at this. Io, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Anybody who knows me knows that it's one thing to just chat, but I love to have somebody talk to me. Talk to me. you know? And just as we're kicking this off, I think that that's really important, because I am in a position of privilege in this community to be able to do some of this advocacy, but I can't do it by myself. And so I do believe that it's really important, even in moments like this, to have a little bit of back and forth, right? To get a sense of what it is that you need me to be advocating for, and how we can turn a celebration of us into the education of others and the advocacy for us. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Do you want people to post messages in
Hey, if
the
they have
chat?
messages or questions, or you wanted to, I am open to talk.
I would like to start off. I have a quick question for you. You had shared a message last year. I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but at the end of the message, after you had an episode, you went to the pharmacy, and the first person who was supposed to have discretion didn't provide the medicine for you, and then the second person was able to, and then you said, I'll be getting back to you. I guess that was the end of phrase. Would love to hear how did that, what was the conclusion of that episode?
So it's interesting. The conclusion of that episode is the ongoing advocacy that I find myself doing right here in the region, but also across the province. I had a number of people reach out to me and say that they had had similar issues, right? Where when they go to seek help, they are not believed, right? Their pain is not believed. Their distress is not believed. Shortly after that, we end up in lockdown and dealing with the pandemic, right? When we think about it, just sort of in the timeline of what has been happening to us right here in the province. And I'm still hearing that. I'm still hearing that from stories of Black frontline healthcare workers who are not provided with the care and support that they need when they say they're feeling sick, or they think that they may be at risk, or any of that kind of stuff. And I think that that is why the data is appearing as it is, right? So what that indicates to me is that it wasn't, that story was never supposed to be about me as an individual having an individual problem at an individual pharmacy. That story was about me as an individual who's apparently supposed to be of privilege because of the role that I have, being reminded of where Black folks are in the grand scheme of care in our community and across the province. And so my hope is that, especially now as more and more data, there was a big push from racialized communities to ensure that sociodemographic data was collected during the pandemic. The government was not feeling that they needed to collect it. But we, as Black folks who are experiencing the kinds of things that we do, know that if there's no data, the government will turn around and say, then we don't need to help you. We don't need to provide resources to you. And so our push for data is our push to be saved, right? And so at this point, my hope is that that preliminary story becomes connected to this reality as this data comes out, that we start to connect those dots. What's happening in Waterloo region is not different from what's happening in Toronto, right? It's all across the province. And so now let's get the investment, and all of the people that support us, all of the people that want to celebrate us during Black History Month, the shortest month of the year. I think that they should all want us to be saved so that they can keep celebrating us in upcoming Februarys.
Fantastic. If you have any questions or comments, you can just drop your comments in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, and we'll be able to share it with Laura Mae. Salam Deb says, yes, Laura Mae, we love our Blackness. Join us in advocating for Black people in this region. So thank you very much, Salam, for that message.
You know what, Ayo, can we stick a pin, as I often do, stick a pin just for a sec? Because that's what's so important. I think that is the key message, right? We celebrate. It's so easy to come and join us in celebration, but how do you show somebody that you really care when you help them when they're at the lowest, right? And so if the data is telling us that Black community members are at higher risk, disproportionately, significantly disproportionately, then let's come together and show them real care. Show them that it's more than just sort of superficial, we're going to just listen to some good music or eat some good food. But no, we're going to make sure that you thrive, that you're safe, that you're cared for. That's what I hope that, Black History Month 2021 in a pandemic can push us to do. To do more than just learning about the issue or hearing about the data, but asking yourself, well, how can you advocate? Who should I write to? You can write to me. You can write to my office and say that you want to make sure that Black community members, that this is addressed, right? If this is in fact what is happening in the data, then let's address it. And I think everybody can do that together.
Thank you for sharing that. I had an incident that happened, and I just want to talk about the importance of unity as well. As a community, in my son's school, where a teacher had seen him as very aggressive. He's a 5-year-old. He has my DNA, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So of course he has too much energy. They said it's the class chatterbox. I won class chatterbox when I was in high school. Gosh, and he's 5 years old. There were reports and concerns that came from the school repeatedly, and I didn't know what to do. As a father and my wife, we didn't know what to do, and we reached out to Lenoir, president of the Caribbean Association, is a very good friend, and I just said, "Hey, this is what I'm going through. What do you think?" And he gave some really, really good strategies on what we could do. And we were able to go back to the school and say, let's partner on this, rather than you put him he was supposed to be put into a special session, but rather than you put him into a special session, can we partner with you as the teacher and make this work? And his behaviors transformed within 2-3 weeks of us just starting a reward system, both in school and at home. And all it took was a 1-hour conversation with the teacher, pushing and saying, no, we're not putting him in this special program. We're going to work this through together. But that came through a conversation with Lenoir, expanded my mind, changing my paradigm. Like, no, you need to think about this a bit differently, Ayo. Black kids are usually seen as more aggressive. So you need to think about this, and that. So the importance of unity and coming together is extremely, extremely powerful. Marcia Smelly has a comment here. It says, please say something about the education system doing more for Black students. We'd love your thoughts, Laura.
Oh, listen, I am so grateful to Marcia for bringing this up, because it's so important. And it's exactly what Ayo was talking about, right? These kinds of situations that Black parents find themselves in, where they're advocating for their own kids in the school system, are not isolated incidents. These are meant to make you feel as though they're isolated, so that the problem remains with you, your parenting, or your child. But the reality is the system has never been set up for us. I think people need, in the education piece of our kickoff for Black History Month, need to remember that segregated schools were law in Ontario, right? That history is not a history solely in the US, which is sometimes how I think we are taught about schools, that people, the Underground Railroad brought people here, everything was hunky-dory, everybody could go to all the places, no problems. That's not our history. If segregated schools were law in Ontario, it stands to reason that the system never saw us as teachable, as worthy of education, as deserving of wisdom or knowledge or support. And so we can take our time and try and make some of those changes, but at the root is a shift that has to happen in schools in general. So folks know that I've got my master's, my PhD in education. Most people that know that about me know that I used to teach in teachers college. When I'm teaching in education, faculties of education across the province and beyond, part of what I am doing when I'm doing my racial equity education is reminding them of that history, so that they start to recognize that some of the things that are sort of normal to them as teachers are not helping Black students. Right? So, ensuring that we have access to books that reflect our stories does not mean go to the library and get books about slavery. I am not a slave. A system enslaved me, but I am not a slave. That is not my story. You can find other books that tell a different kind of story. That's how you sort of help to make sure that even from the get-go, from the time we say jump, we are supported and our stories and our narratives are in there. Making sure that there's a real dedication to racial equity for teachers so that they know how to intervene if something happens. I have a lot of students that still hear the N-word thrown at them at school. You know, I think that's part of why we're seeing Black student unions pop up all over the place in high schools here, right? Students are starting to do that advocacy. So as teachers, let's make sure that we support those students in doing that advocacy. If anybody has any questions about that, because I know our time is coming to an end, they can reach out to me. I am more than willing to provide support for anybody.
How can they reach you?
So they can email me anytime, llindo-co@ndp.on.ca. They can also find me. I am behind my Twitter feed. In case anybody is wondering who is behind there saying all the things I say, that would be little old me. So you can always send me a DM and then I can connect you to the right people in my office. And you can connect with me also through the website. I just saw that coming up. But by all means, reach out to me anytime and we can bring you into the advocacy that we're doing in town.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No worries.
I'm always inspired whenever I hear you speak. There is just a sense of purpose, you know, and, you know, sometimes I go, what am I doing with my life? No.
No. You're doing it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can you share the email address one more time, slower, please?
Yes.
And the team, if you can put it up on the screen. I think a few people wanted it but missed it.
Sure. It is llindo-co@ndp.on.ca. And I'm also just behind the scenes. I'll put it up here.
Okay, it's up on the screen now as well.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's me. So you reach out to me there. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura Mae. Really, really appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this and celebrating with us.
No worries.